which we think is incredibly important. Here, I'm Ben Coombs. I'm at PwC UK. I lead a practice on innovation and sustainability, and we've really been focusing on how do you harness emerging technologies for the environment and climate change. So delighted to join this discussion. With me today, we have Jean-Francois Chartrain, Chief Operating Officer of Tabreed, and he will be talking with us, as well as Sophia Nadur, who is Managing Partner of BP Ventures, New Markets, and Muhamed Bou-Zeid, who's General Manager of Vestas, Middle East and North Africa. So we've got three fantastic panelists. They will introduce themselves as we start and the things they've been working on. In terms of your participation, you can ask questions via the Q&A tab, which I'll be monitoring during, or by tweeting them at ADSW agenda. So at ADSW agenda, and we look forward to getting started. So thank you for joining us today. I hope you caught that beginning. There seemed to be a bit of tech as I was doing my introduction and getting into it. But just to reiterate, just before we start, welcome to the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week web series hosted by Mazda. This session is on innovation in climate change, using innovation to tackle climate change, and we'll be starting and hopefully having a rich discussion. So we're going to start with Jean-Francois, and the question to Jean-Francois and to other panelists, but please do introduce yourself as you sort of come onto the stage, as it were. Which climate technology trends and applications are you seeing in your organization or the wider market that you're excited about?
Well, thank you very much, Ben, and thank you to our colleagues. Thanks also to Mazda for hosting this very exciting event. Welcome to all the audience as well. As you mentioned, I'm working in Tabreed, the National Central Cooling Company, which is a UAE-based district cooling developer and provider. We operate in all the GCC countries, and our business is mainly to supply chilled water through district cooling infrastructure. Well, coming to your question about the use of new technology to tackle the climate change issue, it's very critical for us for two reasons. Because cooling is an essential service in the GCC. You cannot survive without air conditioning, and we are producing, distributing, and providing chilled water for air conditioning purpose. And we've been doing it for the last 23 years, and we wish to continue to do it for the next at least 100 years with the best available technology at the lowest cost for our health. So using the best, selecting and using the best technology is critical for us and critical for the environment and the local economy. What we are looking at the moment is mainly to produce more efficiently the energy we distribute, and to enhance the energy efficiency of our systems. Of course, we are looking at the evolving technology available on the market, such as more efficient chillers, more efficient pumps, cooling towers, and all the equipments that are part of our business. And the technology are evolving quite fast. For example, on the pumps and the chillers, all rotating machines now are supplied through variable frequency drivers that help to enhance the mechanical and the electrical efficiency of the equipment. We are also seeing some new technologies such as magnetic bearing chillers, who are far more efficient than the chillers we had 20 years ago. And on overall basis, we are targeting some improvement in energy efficiency around 10 to 30%, which is significant for our customers. We are also looking at technologies to tackle the energy sobriety energy conservation starts with not wasting energy. And as you may know, in water industry or electricity industry, in many infrastructure company, sobriety started with helping the consumer to avoid to waste energy. We are looking at that in the district cooling industry. We are using smart meters for all our customers, and it helps to advise our customer how to better consume energy. So this is very important. We also have some research and development activities around breaking technology in the region to better produce cooling. For example, we are looking with Masdar in partnership at some geothermal wells and geothermic sources to produce cooling from, of course, zero carbon energy source. So, in a nutshell, I won't be too long and take too much time from my colleagues. But new technologies are available on the market and will continue to emerge from the market to better produce, better distribute, and help our customer to consume less energy for the same comfort.
Thank you very much, Jean-Francois. That was a great overview into the topic, and I'll hand over to Sophia to talk about what is going on at BP Ventures and you're seeing in the market as well.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks again to everyone for having me here. I'm Sophia. I work with BP Ventures, which is the venturing arm of BP, and I'm supporting quite strongly the organization and teams working in the Middle East. So in February 2020, BP had adopted a new purpose, which is to reimagine energy for people and the planet. But to make this a reality, you have to be very ambitious around becoming a net zero company by 2050 or sooner to help the world get to net zero, and to do so in a way that continues to lift people out of poverty. I mean, we've been long known as a company which is able to provide reliable and affordable energy. That's what people want, but increasingly people want it to be done in a cleaner way as well, to ensure that energy is clean as possible and remains reliable and affordable. So, of course, adaptation is essential for both BP and society and in our region as well. We need to increase resilience in the energy system and other infrastructure. We are deploying our own technology to improve efficiency in this area in terms of our operations and productions. We are as well using a number of technology from different companies to help with that transition to a net zero company. For instance, in China, we are deploying a BP Ventures invested startup called PowerShare, which has a EMSP offer, quite innovative, and that's helping us to deliver a digital offer to help EV drivers find charging stations and pay for their charging quite easily, and to help people switch to EVs faster. In the Middle East and elsewhere, we have two launchpad companies, Fortec and Lit, which are supporting oil and gas companies with fiber optic sensing for production, for pipeline use, for perimeter security. But of course, adaptation of production operations is not enough. The world does need still a much more rapid transition to net zero. We see governments have announced bans on new petrol and diesel car sales, some by 2040, some by 2035, and how to help consumers and fleets transition to EVs. We've been investing in incredible amount of EV charging infrastructure in major markets and our gas stations. You think, why gas stations? Well, actually, car owners live within generally 20 minutes of a gas station in many markets. So that's a natural place to put EV charging infrastructure on. We're also adapting technologies and know-how from what we know from building safe and convenient fuel stations to building EV charging hubs, which we're doing in China and the UK and elsewhere in the world, which will also help millions of drivers, encourage these ride-hail drivers to switch to cleaner forms of transportation. It actually took us only months from our first meeting with Didi in Beijing to have our first charging hub in Guangdong. So it shows that we can adapt and quite quickly. We're also supporting other large corporations decarbonize their operations too. So we have announced partnerships with technology giants like Microsoft and Amazon, and it's about sharing technologies and know-how. We also know cities and industries are also challenged to hit their climate goals. Cities account for about 70% of global CO2 emissions, and so there's huge pressure to reduce. We've taken a kind of a novel approach, and we've signed agreements with the City of Houston and the City of Aberdeen to partner with them and to help them reduce their CO2 emissions as well, working with partners to bring the best engineers, the best urban planners, the best sustainability and building tech to help fix those problems together. We announced this week just a partnership with the Republic of Azerbaijan to cooperate in assessing conditions, how to deliver large-scale decarbonization as well. We're continuing to search for partnerships that can help us drive progress and provide tech that we may not have, but help us to deploy faster the tech that we do have, and help to shape the future in a much more cleaner footprint. Why I'm here. I'm here to set our stall out. And I see the UAE and the wider Middle East region has lots of challenges as well to combat climate change, but I think we can fix this together.
Thank you very much, Sophia. That was a great overview and introduction. And then over to Muhamed to introduce himself and also to answer the same sort of question about those climate trends, those technology trends, and what you're seeing in your organization as well. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ben. Thank you so much, Ben, for having me here, and good afternoon to everyone from Abu Dhabi. Muhamed Bou-Zeid, obviously, is the general manager of Vestas for the Middle East and North Africa region. You might know Vestas. We're the leader in the wind turbine technology. I have over 13 years experience in different industries with the energy sector. So I come from the dark side, as I say. The first project I worked on was a coal-fired power plant. So I have a few years to become carbon neutral. Now Vestas has been in the region on ad hoc basis for a decade or so, but recently we decided to expand our business in the region by setting up a regional headquarters and with a team dedicated and empowered to operate and develop our business here in the region. Now to your question, Ben. From a wind power technology perspective, we see a move towards optimized energy production. So we do this by developing variants in the size of our blades, rotors, and towers. This is all obviously in coordination with our customers to cater for their needs and site and wind conditions. I'll give you two examples on this. We recently launched the V155. So it's a 155 meter long rotor blade producing 3.3 megawatt. This platform is specifically for India's low and so-called ultra-low wind conditions. Another one is the launch, the very recent launch of the V236. It's a 15 megawatt turbine, and it's a massive turbine. And I would like you to imagine here the size of a football field in diagonal and multiply it by 2. You will then get the size of one of its rotor. So it's a massive one, and it's obviously intended for the offshore business. Another interesting thing with this one is that it comes with floating seabed technology, and this is well suited for the oil and gas, and that can help this industry to transform into renewables. Now internally, we have set a target to become carbon neutral by 2030, and we do this through the reduction of carbon emissions in our own operation, as well as the supply chain. And we will not stop there, because we're also exploring the use of recyclable materials for our turbines in order to produce zero waste turbines by, I think, 2040. So that's what we're doing in the internal side, and as I explained, externally, the trend we see is mainly on the optimizing the energy production. That's all, Ben.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's given a really good overview from our three panelists of the types of things that are going on, certainly within the energy sector and more broadly. You know, we've heard some things about, there's some various examples from various places around the world. I suppose what I think some of our audience would be really interested in, what are the implications of those opportunities and solutions for the UAE region? And what are the things that are coming down the track that really are going to make a difference here in this region? Obviously, there's lots going on around the world. So, you know, probably a shorter answer on this one, but just Jean-Francois, anything in particular that, you know, you really think, you know, UAE has got a really good opportunity in these two or three areas?
Well, yes, absolutely, and it's in the cooling and air conditioning industry. UAE paved the way for the region 20 years ago when it started the district cooling industry, and now in Dubai the penetration of this technology is around 30%. In Abu Dhabi it's around 20-25%. But compared to our neighbor countries, Saudi is probably less than 10% penetration of district cooling. So there is, because the technology is able to supply chilled water energy with a much better efficiency, globally speaking, an efficiency of more than 50% higher. There is a space in the region to develop further. And as long as the district cooling industry invests in new technology, develop new technology with our partners, we will be competitive economically, but also from an environmental point of view as well. So yes, there is in the region there is potential for further growth and further development of new technologies, further investment in new technology to enable the air conditioning supply to be to have a lower impact on the planet.
Thank you very much. And Sophia, from your operations, what particularly interests you about the UAE and the Middle East?
You know, it's funny. So like our partnerships with Microsoft and Amazon, we see a huge benefit to pooling technologies, actually, to help, for instance, regional oil and gas companies decarbonize and diversify. To this end, I'm working with Salim Ben Ashur, which is the VP and GM of BP in UAE, Chris Tabbitt, an advisor to BP Ventures, and lots of colleagues to really deeply understand what it is that, let's say, oil and gas companies or other large corporates in the energy value chain, what do they need to decarbonize and digitalize, and then design and deploy together and quickly the tech-based solutions. Because my view is that there are loads of existing technologies and know-how that can be redeployed to solving new challenges. Looking at the same time more broadly, and I'll leave the discussion on wind to Muhamed. One obvious area is in solar, which offers a huge opportunity to develop and deploy tech there. We have a partner company called Lightsource, which is already supporting renewable energy generation in Egypt and in other areas of MENA. But there are new technologies that haven't as yet been invented to deliver next generation storage, transmission, demand management solutions. I mean, there's so much talent in the region, and I'm sure we can find the solutions here. I know the example, there's a lady in working in the King Abdullah University of Science and Tech. Her name is Dira Bayan. She co-founded a company which is developing a transparent solar panels, which helps to generate electricity from windows using new transparent PV techs, which can reduce electricity consumption of buildings by 25%. She has other ideas around solar link tech. I think there's a lot of technology around new stuff that is in the region that can help. And I think we can mix and match technologies too to solve issues. I saw a question in the Q&A panel already from someone from Nigeria, which is saying, well, how do we do this in a region where there's intermittency in terms of energy? Well, there's tech already available. So grid edge operating platforms, batteries, IoT, prepayment metering, bringing that together to help solve for what is real and present issues that people are facing. I think there's lots of options available for us to really lift people out of poverty here as well and make people even more prosperous. And again, but I think a lot of it comes down to partnering and looking at what we've got already in terms of tech and deployment options.
Thanks, Sophia. That was very helpful, and thanks for picking up the question in the Q&A. Over to Muhamed. Talk about the region and those really big opportunities that you see coming down the track.
Yeah, I mean, the UAE, if we specifically in the UAE, it has good potential for incorporating wind power into its energy mix. And considering the challenges of water scarcity in the region, it makes a lot of sense to work with other sectors to tackle this challenge. For examples, I mean, what Northern Europe did for district heating in using waste to energy to heat up their communities, we can do similar things as well by using wind energy for district cooling instead. So another thing that can be done, collaborating with again the oil and gas sector to bring it into the renewable sector with having offshore wind turbines. I think in terms of what implication we to reach this is, I would say that it's mainly a workable and transparent policy. And we are talking to leaders and policymakers across the region. Just last night, we were writing a letter to one of the bigger leaders in the Middle East to propose policies that can help us collaborate more efficiently and drive this transition. So yeah, that would be it from our side.
Well, thanks very much. I think that's been really helpful. So I think hopefully the audience have got a bit of an idea now of the types of technologies and trends that are going on in markets, in particular in energy, types of things that might be, more applicable to the UAE, Middle East region more broadly. I think I just want to move the conversation on now to we've got these stretching targets. We know that we need, 10, 11% emissions reductions globally per year, every year to 2050 to hit net zero. What are the types of things, the innovations and technologies the world is going to need to hit that, global net zero target by 2050, halve emissions by 2030? So I'd just be really interested to hear of the types of breakthroughs that you think are really going to be necessary to shift the dial and rapidly accelerate action. So, Jean-Francois, let's start with you, and just anything that you can think of. It may be, conceptual, it might be an R&D, it might even be bigger than that, because obviously it's such a big challenge that we're facing.
Well, in our industry, it is clear that the major change would come from the possibility to use green energy or zero carbon energy in our systems. And since we are able to store energy in district cooling plants, we are able to easily use intermittent source of energy, such as wind or solar power. Not in all the parts of the world we can, as consumer of electricity, we can choose our electricity sources. Here in GCC, we are bound to the monopoly provider of electricity. However, in a world where we could use only green energy or zero carbon energy, that would be a way to produce and distribute zero carbon air conditioning systems. I would say that I believe also very much in geological sources, hot water, deep ground hot water to produce chilled water with absorption chillers. The technology is available. It's now only a question of making the decision to do it, and we are very close to do it in Abu Dhabi. That will be very exciting in the next 2-3 years.
Great, thanks very much. And Sophia, what are those big breakthroughs that we all need to happen, and either within your company or just more broadly that you're thinking about in terms of, wow, I really hope we can get there in the next 5-10 years?
So decarbonizing our oil and gas facilities and digitalizing them is going to take quite a lot of heavy lifting, and we talked a bit about it. And how do we as well support renewables, whether it's partnering offshore or onshore, etc. I mean, we signed an agreement recently with Equinor, which is a global leader in wind energy, to help grow renewable power. But our investment, the available investment we've got into low carbon is around $5 billion a year, which is huge. But is it enough? We can always do more, but we can do so with partnering through others. And I think something about how we think about how we deploy funds, I think that has a big, it's a big determinant in terms of the outcome and how quickly we can reduce carbon emissions. It's not just around tech, but around deployment of money as well. I think hydrogen is obviously an area of opportunity. Probably blue hydrogen may be of most interest in this region. I mean, it's from natural gas, and so it's probably going to be type of hydrogen that'll be probably most quickly deployable to be able to clean up transmission, clean up emissions in this area. I mean, and then you can then take some of the carbon dioxide and then capture and store on the ground using CCUS tech as well. I mean, it is quite an economical way to produce hydrogen, and of course, when used with CCUS, it can produce almost zero emissions. I think that's quite interesting. And in terms of carbon capture and storage, I mean, we've just announced a venture investment in a UK company called Sea Capture, which is again part of this ecosystem around finding ways to retrofit low carbon emitting aspects to the built up environment. I guess the question is how we do this. It's not just around what it is, but how we do this. And I think the short answer is together. The longer answer is definitely through collaboration, more and more, building a strong innovation culture, which I know exists already in Abu Dhabi. And I guess we'll talk a bit about Master City in a bit. But for me, at the end, we always come back to whatever we do and however we do it. We must always remember that people everywhere want access to reliable, affordable, and now increasingly cleaner energy. So in my view, and the view of BP as well, is how helping the world to reach net zero and improving people's lives everywhere shouldn't be an or, it should be both. We should be able to deliver both. I grew up in a developing country in Trinidad where energy was relatively cheap. So not that different in some countries in this region, because Trinidad was a net producer of oil and gas, but it wasn't particularly reliable, our energy supply. It's better now, but reliability is an issue, and we need to address this at the same time as working on ways to deliver cleaner energy.
Thanks very much, Sophia. And I noticed you sort of highlighting the partnerships question, which I'd like to come back to, but I'd love just Muhamed to have a chance to, that sort of blue sky, 5 to 10 years. What are the big breakthroughs that you're thinking, really hope those things happen, and how do we get there?
Well, thank you, Ben, but I really hate to go last. My colleagues have mentioned a lot of interesting things so far, but let me try to complement. So we, like what is already mentioned, we also see the drive towards electrification, decarbonization, and digitalization. And that's not just in the renewable energy sectors. It goes across building, transport, industry, agriculture, you name it. But specifically on the renewable side, we're really looking at application with hybrid solution, where we can integrate different sources, like what Francois mentioned earlier, also wind and solar, and also storage. And this will help obviously create more efficiency and cost efficiency, mainly grid reliability. As you can imagine, the region has very good reasons to embrace solar energy and have done so very successfully the last few years. And it's just natural to integrate this source with wind because of the fact that they complement each other well. During the day, you have the sunny hours, and in the afternoon, evening times, the winds start to pick up, and you can have more or less a base power plant with 24 hours electricity. So that's a very natural development in my view, and more interestingly is at least from my point of view, is the storage. And many companies are obviously launching pilot programs to solve this challenge. And of course, we do too. I want to mention here that we have a partnership with Mercedes-Benz for the Formula E. In fact, there's a race starting tomorrow. You can watch in Dira, Saudi Arabia, a Formula E race where a Mercedes-Benz car will be racing powered by Vestas. And that's a partnership that we really are learning a lot about how to store electricity. So that's a tremendous partnership from my point of view. Another thing that has been mentioned by Sophia, the hydrogen. That I see is a blended way of taking advantage of electricity during the day and evening time from solar and wind and store it in hydrogen. That's clearly a future many companies are looking at.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, that's great. And I think I just want to ask one more sort of formal question going around. I took the hint, Muhamed, and then we'll go to the questions on the sidebar, because I think there's some really interesting questions in there. So just one more question that I feel like it'd be nice to get from the panel, and then we'll have hopefully 10 or 15 minutes for questions. And it's really picking up on, I've heard all of the panelists talk about partnerships, and that's been a really interesting discussion. And when we had our pre-meet and met each other for the first time, that really came through strongly. So I would just like to ask, going round, in the same order again, but then we'll move over to the questions. How can those collaborations and partnerships accelerate action? What are the key levers for making that change? But for people who perhaps haven't got into partnerships yet, what are the lessons there, and how can we really accelerate that action? So, Jean-Francois, anything learnings you've had from the partnerships you've been in on the type of outcomes you're able to achieve or impacts you're able to make because of coming together with others?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I would say it's a very important question, because by working in silos or without any partnerships, the fight against climate change will never happen, or will never give significant results. Industries isolated cannot fight efficiently this. And partnership should happen at all level. I think it is the main takeaway of our story during the last years. Partnership with our clients is crucial to help them and to help us to mutually to reduce the consumption on the buildings, but also partnerships with communities and worldwide organizations are very efficient. For example, we signed an agreement with partnership with the United Nations Cool Coalition, and we are developing projects in India at the moment. Without this partnership, it could not have happened in the south region of India. We would not have been able to be influential and listened from the communities without the support of United Nations. Partnership with technology providers and universities are also very important as an industry. We focus on our core business and partnership with universities. We have a very good partnership with Masdar to develop big data analytics and artificial intelligence application to help us to better produce our energy. This is absolutely crucial. Without this access to new technology, we would be slower on developing and progressing on this journey. So I would say partnership is being able to build a strong and long-term partnership is absolutely crucial to tackle the climate change issue.
Thank you very much. And Sophia, I know you talked a lot about partnerships, but I'm kind of thinking about what are the impacts and outcomes that you're getting from those partnerships rather than the ones that you're doing, which obviously are extensive.
I think if you think of it, so before you sit down to decide who you want to partner with, you need to understand what the problem you're going after. And we used to do that perhaps maybe too much in a vacuum, and actually bringing our partners in quite early helps us to really get to the root of what is the customer problem we're trying to solve, or what is the city problem, or what is the country problem we're trying to solve. And we found that actually spending a bit of time up front has led to, in terms of outcomes, has led to much better definition of what the issue really is. And the other thing we found quite useful is that once you sit down with the partners and you start to kind of work out, well, what it is that you've got and what it is that I've got, and you actually inject a bit of humility into the conversation, because you probably don't have everything that you need to solve the problem or even solve their problem, and actually getting to the sort of acceptance that, look, the sum of the whole is better than the parts, and that is one of the key things we've been able to, let's say, show even more success, is being able to be quite upfront around what it is our strengths, what our partner strengths are, and building on that together. And I talked a bit about Master City, and I quite like what Abu Dhabi is doing and other parts in the region, but like what Abu Dhabi is doing is like, okay, they put a stake in the ground saying Master City is going to be an example of how urban development can evolve in a low carbon way. And we are partnering with them on this Catalyst Accelerator program, which is the region's first sustainability focused program. Because actually we realize already, even the big corporations don't have all the answers. And so having to work with these accelerator companies is helping us as well to commercialize much more quickly some of these low carbon opportunities, which we couldn't do even just partnering with big companies. So it's that more broader ecosystem, I think, is what is delivering us quite a lot of success so far.
Thank you very much. And Muhamed?
Yes, Ben, I can't agree more than what have been said by my colleagues here. The fact that collaboration is key and we cannot work in silos. I don't want to repeat many of the things that have already been said, but I just want to be very brief and comment on one thing here, and that's that the future success lies obviously in the youth. And I really like what the UAE have done here in forming this youth councils. We have similar experience also in Saudi Arabia, where in the end of last year we took part of the NEOM Innovation Challenge, where we had high school students pitch for innovative projects under different sectors. We took part as mentors from the energy sector, and I think this type of mentorship is also important, not only internally but also for our organization. For the bigger community. So yeah, that would be the only thing I would like to add on this: the fact that we should really mentor the youth and guide them and make them ready for the innovations for the future.
Thank you very much, and a really important comment, particularly given the year that we've had across the world and the youth being impacted particularly hard from COVID and other things. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the Q&A panel on the side here, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to sort of read out one question. I think I'll read out 3 questions and sort of look around, try and see the body language and see who might like to answer one of these. So I'm not sure, is there a hand raising function? But anyway, so I think we had a question that Sophia started to answer from Abdul Razak about which base technologies innovation would you suggest for domestic energy sources for rural communities in Africa, where clean energy and infrastructure is almost non-existent, and that's from Abdul Razak in Nigeria. So I know Sophia answered it. Is there anyone else want to add anything to that point about sort of where you haven't got the infrastructure in place? I mean, I have one. Oh, go on, Jean-Francois.
No, sorry. I don't know if I have a specific answer to this question, but I can only report or comment on the one initiative we had with the United Nations program last year, and we helped the Tamil Nadu region in India to develop some initiatives in a rural area to provide cooling to communities, but essential cooling to preserve food, cooling to transport food in the rural areas. And the contribution, I must say, the contribution of the UNEP program is absolutely remarkable. And I would encourage Abdul Razak to have a discussion with them.
Great, and I mean, one thing just from my work, Abdul Razak, is that idea of moving directly to distributed grids rather than starting with centralized grids. I do think there are some advantages of being able to start with the new generation technology and designing an optimal system for the technology that's available now rather than the technology that was available 50, 100 years ago. There's definitely a first mover disadvantage. My best example of that, I think, is the London Underground, first one in the world. We're still stuck with a lot of those tunnels there that have been around since 1880, and that's not great. It's a lot easier to go with a massive machine now and bore down and do lots of different things. So, you know, while it's challenging, I think there is also an opportunity to move and design and develop a system. And we've been working with the city of Johannesburg on thinking about their mobility systems and other things in that sense of from the base of a new technology suite of options. So we've got a question here about, I said I wouldn't go one by one, so let me just pick these next two. One about fuel switching. Hydrogen is considered, H2 is considered in energy and cooling sector in UAE to be economically a viable option. Maybe that's more of a comment, but a bit of a question there about economic viability, I think, around hydrogen. One from the Philippines, from Michael, saying we have biotech innovation, very useful for the conversion of waste into cooking oil to energy. I actually interviewed a guy yesterday trying to join the team, and he was saying that he'd managed to do that for waste cooking oil at his school into the vehicles for his school anyway, but also converting food waste to soil, humus, and organic liquid fertilizer. We need partners here in our country. Please guide us. So if there's any ideas on how you start those partnerships, and just take one more and then we'll any thoughts on carbon pricing, dollar price trading, implementation, anything on carbon pricing. So there's a question around carbon pricing, a question around biotech innovation and partnering, and a question around hydrogen and economic viability. I assume that means over time as well. Anyone want to pick up on any of those three that we've had in?
Can I maybe touch on carbon pricing? So, I mean, we believe that a well-designed carbon price is probably the most efficient way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Why? Because efficiency means lower costs and a better chance of maintaining both public support and also political support to get to net zero. We think the carbon price does provide the right incentives for everyone, energy producers and consumers, for everybody to play their part in reducing emissions. I mean, of course, we prefer national carbon pricing. It's probably easier and the broader and the deeper markets that these can create, but also subnational programs can work. I mean, we are actively advocating for this through the World Bank and other aspects, because we think that that's a very easy way for us to hit our emissions faster. Because again, it's all about how can we do this as quickly as we can.
Great. Anyone on the other 2 points or comments there that wants to comment?
Ben, if you don't mind, I forgot those 2 additional questions you had, but I see 2 other ones that I would like to comment on.
Sure, no, go for it. Absolutely, yeah. Don't feel. I'm just trying to make sure we get a broad sweep of the things here. Yeah. Sure.
No, it's just that there's a question directed directly to me, and that's on the. It says, how do you see the potential of the renewable energy industry, mainly in the Middle East? And this one, in my view, is fairly straightforward. If you look at how much power we have from renewable energy in the Middle East, it's more or less 3%, slightly less than 4%, so around 3%. And while the rest of the world lays on around 17% with much higher ambitions. Now, the way I see it is that we have great wind and solar potential. I mentioned that earlier. Specifically, if you look at the wind potential in the Red Sea area between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, just great wind corridors. good so-called capacity. I see that we can easily introduce a wind project in the region to capture this potential, and that would be the first step. And the second step, I would see, again, as mentioned earlier, going in hybrid, connecting the wind and solar to have base load power plants. So I think that the sky is the limit. From there, we can go to offshore, but renewable as such, I think, again, going from 3% where we are today to 17, very easy. We have policymakers and visions like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia putting a vision for 2030 of having 16 gigawatt only in wind. I think it's more or less 30 gig of renewable energy for the country. Morocco have similar ambitions, Egypt the same. So I think the future is very good here.
Thanks very much for that, Muhamed. I just want to pick up on a couple of other things. I think we are going to try and wrap up in 3 or 4 minutes, but just a comment here about the UAE repurposing its offshore oil and gas platform for offshore wind and hydrogen production. Apparently ADNOC at R&D are looking into that. So one, just to mention to people that could be an option going forward. One about when green hydrogen is going to become, available for consumers and cost competitive. Not sure anyone's going to jump up and say a date for that, but we're obviously all hoping that comes pretty quick. If someone does want to jump in on that, they're welcome to. And then the final question I just wanted to pick up on was innovation in those difficult to decarbonize areas, the hard to abate sectors, shipping, aviation. This person's mentioned food production. I'd probably add cement, steel, so aluminium. So where, any thoughts on those sectors and what your organizations are doing, either directly or indirectly, to support what is going on with those sectors?
Perhaps I can comment. So, we have a big aviation business in terms of supplying aviation fuels to the aviation sector. And as well, we've got a big shipping business as well. Yes, of course, they are arguably more difficult to decarbonize, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. So there are ways you can do it, obviously, by energy efficiency improvements, and that is technology-led. So we are looking with technology companies, we've invested in a few as well, to help us improve the efficiency of the production and operations in those sectors. But of course, there is new technology and new sources of energy, and for instance, biofuels, I think, is a big area of opportunity within aviation to help decarbonize that area, but also at the end it comes down to consumer behavior as well. We probably need to think, especially we've all gone through the pandemic and we've all adjusted our lives a bit to new ways of working and new ways of living. I think we all have to make different decisions in terms of how we want to play our role within where we fly, how often we fly. Can we find and use more efficient modes of transport? Those are things that at a household level, people are already making these decisions. But what we can do in terms of industry to make that cleaner is something which we are working on, and again, open again to more partners within the region and elsewhere to help make that happen.
Thanks very much. Any final comments from our other two panelists, or then I'll move to wrap it up and give everyone a little bit of a break before, no doubt, their next virtual experience.
Ben, I would like to say, I would dare to say something about the timing of green hydrogen.
Go for it. I didn't want to force anyone. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of public announcement. Most recent one I saw just today about the cooperation between Morocco and I believe Spain in terms and development of green hydrogen. I believe in the announcement that we've seen in Saudi Arabia and Oman, and I think the one in Saudi Arabia proclaiming that they will produce hydrogen in Neom City by 2025. I think that's a challenge, but I think I see steps being taken to get there, and I think that it's doable. So that would be my bet. 2025.
Well, thanks for that benchmark, and we'll all hold you to it. No, but that's been fantastic. Well, look, I think hopefully for the audience out there, I hope that's been a really interesting and innovative discussion about what technology and innovation can do for climate change. And let's make no qualms about this. We need innovation and technology if we are going to solve the massive global challenge we have on climate change. Bill Gates came out a week to 10 days ago saying if we achieve this, if we manage to get to net zero and halve global emissions by the end of this decade, that'll be the biggest achievement humanity has ever achieved. So, the scale of this challenge is massive. What I hope you go away with encouraged by this conversation with our great panelists is that there is a lot going on across sectors, great collaborations and partnerships. Try and get involved with your own organization. I know there's a lot going on in Abu Dhabi, there's a lot going on in UAE, and, thanks to Mazda. And, this has been the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week web series. And I really hope that this has been a really crucial pillar in what is a broader series of topics. So thank you very much for joining. I would like to thank my panel, Jean-Francois, Sophia and Muhamed, for their excellent insights and for their time today and joining us for this session. I'm Ben Coombs from PwC. We look forward to having you join us for the next web series in the last week of March, which is going to be on the Sustainable Development Goal 5, SDG 5, and a sustainable recovery. And just a final reminder that a recording of this, along with many other sessions, is on the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week YouTube page. So please do check that out. And if you're coming in late and going, what was all that about? Mentioned, it was the Innovation in Climate Change session as part of ADSW web series. So thank you for joining us. Thanks to my panelists. Thanks to the organizers and for having us and hosting us today. And, I'll leave you to have a short break before no doubt your next call. Thank you.